Teaching art and screen printing has always been a challenge. Every student and class is different. But concentrating all my gear into one very heavy suitcase and getting it all the way to northern Cambodia was an adventure. But we made it. The only thing I didn't bring was some pieces of heavy glass that I need to weigh down my screens. It was too heavy and might break. So we ventured to the outskirts of town. Luckily, we found an amazing shop and they set us up fine. I knew because I didn't speak Khmer, I would need an interpreter. It was great meeting Leek, as she was the perfect go-between with me and the girls. It was amazing how well we communicated. I was sent two groups of girls, about 13, 14 years of age, from different hill tribe villages for my silk screening project. It was a special overnight stay for them in the UWS building in Ban Long. Many of them had never been to town before, and you could see that they wore their best outfits. It's important to me that my students really understand photo emulsion screen printing. I love screen printing because it combines a bit of science and logical thinking with creativity, with some possible entrepreneurship potential. All great to get kids' wheels spinning. First, the students created artwork. I wanted to keep it simple. I said, "We in Canada want to see your world. We don't know it well. I, for example, didn't know your houses were raised up on stilts." And that made everyone laugh. It was important because it made the girls reflect on their environment, what they observed, and how to put that onto paper. Now they had a message for the outside world. They had a voice and a new medium to use, and it was up to them to figure out what they wanted to say and how they would say it with art.
Art has no boundaries, it has no rules, it has no right or wrong, it has no success or failure, it is no yes, no. Art is what you can produce, what you can make.
When the artwork is done, we needed to make and put it on screens. Here's how we did that. First, we prepared our silk screens. That means stapling the silkscreen mesh onto wooden frames. The mesh allows you to squish ink through when you create a print. After that, we put photo emulsion onto our screens. This stuff is great because it reacts to light. When you first put the emulsion onto your screen, it's water soluble. In other words, it'll wash out when sprayed with water. And if you let it dry in a dark place, it'll stay water soluble. If this emulsion is exposed to light for long enough, especially UV light, it changes to being non-water soluble. And that's why we like it. So to get the artwork onto the screen, you have to make sure your image is opaque. Here we used black Sharpies and the paper that was drawn onto was translucent. Then you put your artwork against your prepared and dry screen and press them close together for good contact with glass.
Yep.
Next, you shine UV light onto it for a few minutes, right through the glass. Love the exposure unit I made out of a Canadian Tire halogen lamp. To hold it above the screen, I used a turned over chair I found, MacGyver style. Then you take the artwork and glass off your screen and spray it out with water. It seems like magic. Where the light could get to the emulsion, it changed to non-water soluble. It doesn't wash out. But where the light couldn't get to the emulsion, it stays water soluble and does wash out. That creates a negative or a stencil to print with. Once the screens are washed out, we dried them in the hot Cambodian sun, and then we were ready to print. I made a print surface for the girls to print on by taking all the blankets I could find and spreading them out on the UWS table and covering it all up with canvas that I brought with me. It was perfect. A few quick lessons on how to print, that squishing mixed ink through the screen mesh stencil, and the girls were good to go. We printed the rest of the days away. and then we dried our newly made fabric outside. We also had to figure out what to make out of the fabric, and I wanted this to be the girls' decision. They discussed it and figured that the best thing they wanted to make was knapsacks, and they drew a blueprint just for me to use.
So what we want to achieve is to get children to think. If we get this grey stuff moving around and we get their eyes lightening up and we get that smile on the face, we want children to think. Art is the medium to do that. We very simply can give that child a piece of paper and a crayon. It's the first time they picked up a crayon, it's the first time they've seen a bit of paper, and they can create some artwork. And from there, they do have to think. You can't just give them a piece of paper and say, draw. What am I going to draw? How am I going to draw it? Can we give them guidelines? Can we give them some support? Can we give them some ideas? Yes, of course. But all the time, that child has to think. It has to be creative. And as I say, there's no boundaries. So whatever that child produces, it's good. It's their work. It comes from them and it comes out on the piece of paper. Or it comes out if they make a model with leaves, or they make a model with wood, or they make collage. All these things involves the child thinking and using the natural environment as our resource. But the most important thing to me is that art means a child has to think. And they can do that from a tiny age. So, yeah, I'm an old sportsman. But I admit it, I've been totally converted into the power and the use of art in education. And I suppose this environment lends itself to art.